G'day, Jinx here, and welcome to a small supplemental tutorial about how I run my doomTools projects using bat files. And the reason I'm doing this is because I've basically done most of the stuff I wanted to talk about with the doomTools tutorials. I've done what it is, how to set them up. I've done one on DecoHack, and I did a big one on texturing, which is kind of my personal focus with besides mapping with Doom. What I want to do for my next tutorial is kind of bring it all together into an example of creating a WAD from scratch. Not just a level, but graphics, new monsters, sounds, get the whole thing. You can see the whole thing being done in one big go. The thing is, when I do this myself at home, I use these bat files to just make my life a little easier. And quite frankly, I just don't want to have to do it without using the bat files. So this video is just a really quick rundown of what those bat files are. And of course, you can download them yourself if you want to use them, because I will be doing, when I do the other tutorial, I might be typing commands and you won't be able to use those exact commands because you won't have the bat files. These bat files are just wrappers. They just run doomTools commands for me, basically. And I just want to preface that these bat files that I've made, these power scripts, they're actually created using AI. I didn't code them myself. I just told an AI what I wanted it to do, and it did it. So vibe coding or whatever it's called. I'm not a coder, but I wanted the files to exist, so I got an AI to write them for me. You know, I don't care. It works, so I'm happy. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly go over them. You can download them from the description in the video. Okay, so if you just go to my GitHub, there'll be a section called doom.bat. Just click on that, and there's two folders, doomTools and doomrun. There might be more eventually, but these are the ones that are there now. So doomrun is basically just a shortcut command that I've written to help me run Doom. And I'll talk about that in a sec. So just click on that folder, and there's doom.bat, which all this does is run a PS1, run a power script, which is the more advanced, in inverted commas, terminal system for Windows. You see, Windows being Windows basically has three different ways you can access a terminal. You've got the standard one, which a lot of people still use, which is the command prompt, okay? And that's what I mainly use. And the reason I mainly use the command prompt is that by default, Total's Commander launches things through the command prompt. And a lot of applications that launch command, like text commands, still uses the original command prompt. But then Windows also has the PowerShell, which is the new command prompt. But for legacy reasons, they've kept the old command prompt. And there's another thing called Windows Terminal. My way around this kind of annoying problem is to use the normal command prompt, and then I have a bat file that runs a PowerShell script. And that way, it doesn't matter where you use it, because the bat files can be run from PowerShell and they can be run from the command prompt. So it doesn't matter which terminal I'm using, it'll still run the script. The problem is that PowerShell needs to be told that it's going to allow command prompt to access it. So these commands will be written in the description of the video. But basically, if you write PowerShell-command get execution policy inside PowerShell, you will get something written here. It's most likely going to say restricted at first. And then what you need to do is, on a user level, you just right-click it in from the copy. And what this does, it just sets a user-level access to the PowerShell. And that will allow, and so if you run my scripts and you get an error, and again, Windows being Windows, you probably won't have to do this at all. But I'm just saying, if you run the things and you get these sort of red error messages, this is what you do to fix it. Just check your execution policy, and then if it says restricted, use this command to set it to remote signed, and then the batch files will work. But again, you probably won't need to do that. So get the doom.bat and get the PS1 script. And if you go into doomTools, there's three files. There's dmake, which is a bat file. And then there's doommake-tweak.bat, which runs a power script. And then there's the power script. So you just grab all those files and you're ready to go. Now, these files are designed to go in your environment path. So you can run them from anywhere on your computer via the command line. You don't need to have the files in the actual directories that you want to run them. You can put them in the directory if you only want to run them from one directory, but they're just sort of designed to be run inside the path. To add to your path, you just basically press the Windows key and then press X, and then click on Settings, and then just type in ENV, and the first one that pops up should be Edit System Environment Variables. Click on that. This little box will come up, Environment Variables, and up comes a list of directories, and one of them is called Path. And then just hit Edit. And this is just a list of locations that will be added to your path. And I've made a directory in my programs files called _path, and anything that I want to run from anywhere, like say ffmpeg or whatever, I just chuck in that directory. So you want to add a directory to your path and then copy all these files into that path. And that's all you need to do. Once it's in there, you do need to do a little bit of tweaking to the Doom run file. If you go to the Doom run and you edit it, it'll bring up a text document, and it's just a script basically, right? Now you'll note that there is sourceports.exes here, iwads here, and pak. These are basically what you want to edit. There's also defaults down here. All you need to do is put anything you want here, and you can add your own, like if you've got some other port like LZ Doom equals, and then blah, 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 you know, and you've just added your own command, okay? But basically, these are just different ports that I have installed on my system so I can test things like Cherry, Desada, Kex, which is, you know, Doom 1 plus Doom 2, Nugget, Retro, UZ, which is the new GZ Doom, whatever. And all you need to do is put the path to your executable. That's simple. And for iwads, it's basically the same thing. You've got Doom, Doom 2, TNT, Plutonia, Heretic, Hexen, Free 1 and Free 2, and then I've just written in here. Now there are other iwads that I haven't included, like Chessex or whatever. You can add them in the same way. You can just, you know, put a name equals blah, 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 .wad. You know what I mean? And you can add your own. So that's the first thing you need to edit to get Doom run to working. You need to put in all your source ports and all your iwads. And the script is smart enough to know that if you have something like Edge here has got nothing in it, right? It's smart enough to know that that isn't anything. And it will just, it'll report back, it'll error and say there's nothing there. And say retro, I've just linked that to missing.exe. Just do demo, and again, that'll error out. Then you've got this section called pak, and again, you can name this anything you want. I just use pak 1 and pak 2 because it's quick to type. But basically, you can put in here links to other mods, like other wads, right? And it'll just load them in order. So if I write Doom pak 1, it's gonna load this wad, and then it's going to load this wad, and then it's going to load whatever wad I've told it to load with the command line. So it'll just put the pak 1 first. So you can have sort of groups of wads set up in this thing as well. And I've only put 2 in here, but you know, if I just copy that whole thing, I can just make this pak 3, boom, I just made another pak that I can add to the text file. And then finally, the only other thing you need to edit is defaults. So the default port that I like to use is Nyan Doom, which is basically Desada Doom. I just prefer Nyana Doom. And Doom 2 is my default iwad. And that's basically all you have to edit. And to just recap really quickly, because it's not as complicated as it sounds, just add your whatever source ports you want. Add your iwads, and if you want paks, add some paks, and then put in your defaults. And these default values are just the names you set up here. So Nyan Doom is my source port, so I just type Nyan. But if I wanted that to be woof, I just type woof, and now my default source port is woof. If I wanted my default iwad to be TNT, I just type in TNT. But I use Nyan and doom2 as my defaults. And again, they are found in these names that you set up. Now I'll show you how it works. Let's just go to Doom World. Let's go to Map Releases, and we'll just find something. How about Crimson Horror? Boom. Blam, blam, blam. Get it from ID Games. Boom. And down that comes. Okay, so this is my download directory. There's the Crimson Horror. I'll just right click that and I'll extract that into a new dir and go into that dir. And now I just type in Doom. And boom, it's loaded up. And it's loaded up in Nyan Doom. Okay. Now, because I use Total Commander, I can just type commands into the little command down here, but I'll do it with the command line just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So basically what happens, so if I go dir star.wad, if the batch file finds a single WAD file in whatever directory it's won, it'll automatically load it last. So anytime I want to run a WAD really quickly, if I don't know whether I want to keep it forever and add it to my collection, which is all nice and neatly set up with Doom Runner, I can just download it like I did and just type Doom and boom, I'm in. Okay. I can also put in any commands like no sound. I can also do different, engines. So say I want to use woof, I just type in woof, and now we're actually in woof, not in Nyan Doom. Or let's do Helion. So now we're in Helion. Or, let's do Doom UZ, and we'll just warp 5. Bam. Okay, so that's basically what Doom Run does. And of course I can use my paks as well. Okay, so if I just go into a directory that has no WADs, so if I go star.wad here, there's no WADs in here. If I just type Doom, it'll just go straight to normal Doom. But I could type Doom TNT, and it's loading up with the TNT iwad. You know what I mean? And that way I can load, because remember in the thing we've set defaults to Nyan Doom and Doom2, but it'll take all your normal commands and all that kind of stuff. So that's all basically what it does. But it does a little bit more for general use. If I just go to Games, Doom, WADs, Commercial into Perdition's Gate, and again, I'll do it from the command line so it's a bit easier for you to see. If I go dir star.wad here, you can see there's more than one WAD, okay? So if I run the command here, Doom, it just gives me a little tiny menu so I can select which WAD I want to run. So Perdition's Gate, bam, I'm in. I can run, and all the other commands still work. So I can write Doom woof -warp 5. It'll still ask me for which WAD I want to do, and bam, I'm in. Additionally, of course, I've got those paks. So if I just make it clear, I'll just go to where there's no WADs. So there's no WAD in here. So it's just going to load up raw Doom. So I'm going to go Doom. I press enter, and I'm in Doom. I could type Doom pak 1. And now you can see it's loaded up that pak 1. It's got my custom, black gloves, the black status bar, and it's got my my HUD here, okay? And that's using those pack things. And it's, of course, you know, it's all, you know, whatever. So that was Nyana Doom. I could go Doom, Desada, Pack 2, Warp 6. Okay. So now I'm in Desada Doom. You can see I've got a different aspect ratio set up for Desada Doom. Long story, but it had something to do with what I was doing for like a limit removing classic WAD. Whatever. The point is, you can set up multiple, you know, you can just run anything you want from the command line. Very nice and simple. Okay. But it actually does more than that. But before I get to that, I'm just going to open doomTools and run the doomTools and just create a doomTools project. And that's because the Doom run will actually detect whether it's inside a doomTools project and do something completely different. So if I go Tools, Doommake, New Project, I'll make a WAD project, Doom Tutorials, I'll call this doombats, and in there I'll just type Doom 2 stuff. I'll just make maps, assets. I'll make it a deco hack thing. I'll give it boom extensions. I won't do version control. And I'll just go create. I'll just call this Doom 2 demo. And I'll grab my iwad, which in this case is Doom 2. I'll call it DSD hacked for the deco file. And boom, open folder. I'm now in my folder. And for those that don't have Total Commander, if you hold down Shift and then right click, you should have Open in Terminal, which will open a terminal directly in that location. So, because this is a doomTools project, I can just type doom make and it will make something. You know, it'll make the folder. You know, there's nothing in there, so the build's going to be really small, but it exists, right? So let's just do make clean. But I've made this other one which you downloaded. So if we go back to our file, remember doommake-tweak and the tweak PS1. You don't need to edit these in any way. So now I just type in doommake-tweak and it does its thing. And it tells you everything it's doing. But basically what it's doing is I use a couple of custom build targets. I've got fresh, which does a clean and then a build. I've got the deco, which builds a dehacked lumped only WAD. And I've got something called no patch, which is basically the same as a full release build, as in doing doom-make-make, but it just doesn't build any patch data. It also does a few other things, like it edits the name of the asset WAD. So normally when you do doommake editor, it creates a file called editor.wad. But because I give this WAD to other people to use in their map building, I use the name of the project _ UBD editor assets. And that way, when I send this file to someone, they know, they know what it is. I actually also date it before I send it to people, but I don't put the date in here. What it also does is it creates in the source folder a directory called WADs and then a directory called textures. And that's because if you want to use custom texture assets that are loose files, but you also want to combine that with using doomTools' very powerful texture extraction ability, where it extracts textures from asset WADs provided by the community, you need to manually make this directory, so it makes that directory. It also creates in the scripts folder two WAD merge scripts. One is for the dehacked only WAD, which I talked about in the deco release, and the other one is called the no patch WAD. So now if I go into my folder that it's had that tweak, I can go to source and then I've got WADs textures, that's the new directory it's made. If I edit my doommake script, you can see it's added in a fresh deco, and I think it put no patch as new doommake targets, Plus it did a whole bunch of other little tweaks as well, like it added this new function called do DAH, and it added it to the do all and all this kind of stuff. So I'll talk about that in a sec. Also, in the actual scriptster, it's made the new DEH only WAD merge script, as well as the no patch script. And that just allows me to do a few more things. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy from my DecoHack tutorial the source folder, just so there's something for it to build. And now that I'm in here, I've got doommake. Let's just do a doommake fresh. And you can see that this actually cleans the builder completely and then does a full compile. But it also, normal compiles now also make this dhack.wad, which I like to use. Okay, so that's put in there. And then if I do a doommake clean, I also have doommake-deco, and that creates the dhacked. Now the other one, so if I just do a doommake fresh again to do a completely new build, come over here and we look at our builder. You've got all the build files that we have, but if I actually open up this Doom 2 demo in Slade, so I'll open up Slade, open up the demo wad, it's included a dehacked and a DecoHack lump. And the thing is, if you tell your doomTools project that you're going to use DecoHack, even if you never actually add it in, it's still going to place these lumps in. They're just going to be blank. And that can cause problems, compatibility, when you send it off to other people and release it. So what I like to do with doomTools is I enable everything like I showed you, and that gives me the freedom to just do whatever the hell I want with the project. You know, it's just set up to do everything. But if I decide, you know what, I'm not going to use DecoHack, I'm just going to come in here, I'll just do a doommake clean, and now I do a doommake no patch, like that. You can see it's built all the stuff, but it hasn't built any of the DecoHack stuff. And if I actually load up that file in Slade, you can see it's got everything in it, but it doesn't have any DecoHack or dehack patches. And that's just the way you can make a clean release if you decide not to use DecoHack. Also, like I said, if I do doommake editor, helps if I spell it right, it writes out the new WAD name, which is the one that I give people. And that WAD name is derived from your project. So if you go into your doommake project properties, this name here is what you named your project when you set it up. So it uses that name to create the file. And that's pretty much what doommake does. It just allows me to add all those build targets and folders and stuff all in a simple command. Okay, that gives me these extra build targets. But the thing is, so let me just do a doommake fresh. The thing is that doom run command will recognize if it's being run from the root of the doomTools project. And if it does completely different stuff. So what it does, it looks for these three files. And if it finds all those three files, it recognizes it as a doomTools project, and then it does something slightly different. So now, if I do doom, it's loaded up my release WAD automatically from the project folder. Okay? And the way it does that is that it looks into your, I think it's doommake properties. Yeah, so it looks into doommake properties and it finds this name here, because this is the name that's used to make your release WAD. So I called my project doom2_demo, and in the build folder, the final release WAD is also called doom2_demo. So the doom run recognizes that it's in a project and then loads this WAD file, whatever you've named your project, it'll load it. Okay, and of course, all the other commands that I talked about with Doom still work. So I can go doom woof, right? And it's loaded it up in woof now, okay? And that way I can quickly test other ports and other source ports and make sure everything's working exactly how I want it in a very organic way for me, you know, because it's just a simple command line. And what it also does is that it writes into the root folder this thing called doomloader.conf, which is a little configuration file. So if I edit that file, you see that it's got the name of my release WAD, it's got the name of the dehacked WAD that I'm editing and playing around with, and if this WAD is missing, it just won't use that, it ignores it. But this allows you to, because the way I like to work on dehack stuff is just work just on the dehacked WAD and get that completely working separate from everything else by loading it after my release WAD until I end up embedding it. And then it actually has the iwad here, right, that you're using. And then it sets up the default warps. So if your default iwad is set to Doom, this will actually say 1.1. Because like if you're going to episode 3, map 5, you warp like that, right? But that's what it comes out as defaults. So when I type Doom, right, it will create this file if it's not found and then read from this file as defaults. Okay, so that's why it's warping skill 4 to 1. Okay. But say I've completely finished with my map 1, I want to start working on map 2, I can just change the default, and now when I type in Doom, it's going to warp to map 2. And that way I don't have to keep typing -warp, because of course the actual, all the normal commands still work. You know what I mean? But you see I'm still loading up my release file. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that I have this Doom run thing that runs Doom, and I can use that to run WADs outside of my doomTools project, but it's really for running it in my project. I can test different source ports and it automatically loads stuff up. I can set defaults, and you know, it's very handy. It's very quick, but not quick enough, because you might remember there's one last file I asked you to download, and that is dmake. So dmake is just a wrapper for Doom Run and Doom Make in one go, because dmake is quicker to type, and I like things that are quick to type. So if I just go back to my project, CMD, if I type dmake, it just does the same as typing doommake, okay? And all the same commands work. So dmake clean, dmake fresh, whatever, okay? It just does doommake, right? So whatever your normal doommake commands, dmake is the same. It's just a quick way of typing it. But if you type dmake, so I do dmake fresh and then I put a --. If I type --, after whatever commands I'm sending to doommake, it'll then run the doom.bat and load up Doom. So if I put --, it's just the same as typing. So dmake fresh -- is the same as typing doommake fresh Doom. It's the exact same thing. So if I go dmake fresh -- it'll do the build and then instantly load me in. And anything you put after the -- is sent to the doom.bat. So if I go doommake, I just took doommake by itself, -- and then I put woof. It does the build and then it's loaded it up, but it's loaded it up in woof, not inside my default, which is Niana Doom. So it's basically just a simple way that I can very quickly do my builds and load up my testing wads and stuff very, very simply. And that, my friends, is the BAT system that I use when I'm making my projects. And the reason why I'm going into all that is because I'm going to be doing this big tutorial soon, and I'm going to be using these commands. And if people want to follow exactly, they can just download my BAT files and get it working themselves. But the reality is that they're just quicker ways of doing the same thing. They just allow me to run doommake commands in a faster way and allow me to load my source ports up to test my wads in a faster way. That's all they do. Plus the doommake-tweak edits my doommake scripts to set it up how I like to have it as my default base project. But I am not done with you yet, because there's one more thing I want to talk about just before I move on. For those of you who do not want to use BAT files, Mtrop, the guy who makes doomTools, has actually only just released, it's sort of not even version 1 yet, but it's looking like it's going to be a typically great program, an application called Doomy, which is a Doom launcher that also runs from the command line. So if you go to the Doomy GitHub, which the link will be in the description, you can download Doomy. And Doomy is a graphical loader that looks like this. And the way Doomy works is that you can set up presets to load things. It's even got its own WAD downloader, like you can just download WADs directly from ID and Doom Fetch and stuff like that. But for our purposes as a doomTools tester, it actually works really, really well as is. And soon, because we're only at 0.07, the more he puts into this, it's just going to get better and better. And I think this will eventually completely replace my BAT file anyway. So click on add engine, and then you can add your engine. We're going to call this Nyan and come down to templates, and we're just going to select Desada Doom. And it will fill in all this stuff for you. But basically, it allows you to set up this engine for unusual engines that have their own commands that you might not be universal. You can set up anything you want in this little section here. So we're going to go to path, and we're going to grab my engine, Nyan Doom. And the setup exe is in case you're running something like chocolate, and we just go add. And now we've got an engine called Nyan. So let's just add another one. We're going to do woof. We're going to select my woof doom, and we'll call this one woof. And finally, just for fun, we will add Z doom, or GZ doom, and exe path. I'll just go to UZ doom, and I'll call this one UZ. Okay, and you can tweak these little things in here. So the interesting thing is the save dir and the screenshot dir, because for example, Helion has its own name for that, its own dash command for that, which isn't universal. Whatever, you can set it all up here. So we've set up 3 engines. iwad's very, very simple. We'll just hit the scan button and we'll browse to my iwad dir. Boom. And we've got all our iwads. And now what we want to do is in the WAD section. So firstly, we're going to go to our project. I'll just open up the command prompt so it's clearer. And I'll just do a doom make fresh, doom make clean, and then I'll do a doom make just to build. So in the build folder, we actually have our final release WAD, which in this case is called Doom 2 demo. So back in Doomy, in WADs, I just go add. I'll call this project, and I'll browse to that actual WAD. So I go into my folder, I go into the build, and I select my release WAD like that. Okay, I'm just going to add that. I'll just call this project release. And what I'm also going to do, just because the way I like to do things, I'm also going to do the dehacked WAD. and I'll call that project dehacked, like that. And now in presets, I'm just going to create a preset. I'm going to call this DT for doomTools. I'm going to select my default engine, which is Doom in my case. I'm going to select my default iwad for the project, which is Doom2. And I'm going to add my wads in the correct order. So I'm going to put my release and follow it up with my dehacked, like so. And then I've just created that preset. So now if I hit launch, it's basically just, you know, loaded the WAD as we want it to do it. But the cool thing is, if I just go back into the command prompt, I can actually just type Doomy. So I can just go Doomy DT for the preset name, and it's just going to load it up. See, I'm in my file. And I can also put dash dash, and now these commands will be sent to the engine. So I can go no sound warp 1, and boom, I'm in the thing. And so this allows me to basically set up my own. It's basically like my bat file, but you know, slightly easier, I guess, maybe to use in the long run. Now, to run different engines to do your testing, what you could do is just set up other preset called DT woof. So I could just create one here. I'll call this DT woof, and then I just select the woof engine, and I select the Doom2 iwad, and I select my wads that I want to use and make sure they're in the correct order, and create. And now I've got one called DT woof. So now I can just go Doomy DT woof, and it's loaded up inside woof. So I can get much of the same, you know, and of course, you know, you've got the dash dash warp 1 or whatever, dash 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 warp 1. And, you know, it's got much of the same functionality as my bat file. I think my bat file is a little easier to use at the moment, but I think eventually this is going to be the standard for working with doomTools. Being able to just through the Doomy command test different engines and do different warps. You can do some things manually though. See, I could type in Doomy and then I go run woof dash I for iwad. I just say Doom2. That's the name of the iwad in Doomy. So Doom2 is the name here, right? And then I just go wad for wads. And I don't know, I'll call that, what did I call it? Project underscore release, I think I called it, right? And that's basically done the same thing, right? And you can put in multiple things, so I can follow with that project underscore dehacked, you know. And of course, you can do the dash dash warp 1 or whatever. So you can actually just write the whole thing out as a command line like that. And you can even save it into a preset. So basically, if I write that and then I put dash dash name DT woof, like that, I now have Doomy DT woof. So you can just very quickly make your preset. So if I go back to Doomy now and I go to presets, oh wait, I already had DT woof because I made it manually. Let me try that again. So if I went run UZ, and I'll just turn this into DTZ. You can see it's loaded up in ZDoom. And now I can just do Doomy DTZ, and it saved that preset basically. Okay, so I don't know why it hasn't added it to there. Like I said, it's sort of beta at the moment. I bet you if I close this and then reopen Doomy, it'll have the preset written inside the GUI. Yeah, see, and there's the DTZ. So what I'm trying to get here is that you can use Doomy to do a lot of that command line running Doom stuff if you don't want to use my batch files. I just thought I'd mention it, and I do think this application is going to just continue to improve its very early stages. I've actually only really touched the surface of what it can do. It can do a lot more stuff like, you know, fetching files directly from ID games, and, you know, it uses Doom fetch, and you can set up all these intricate things. So it's a pretty powerful command line launcher for Doom. But yeah, that's about that. For me, I'm just going to stick with running Doom. You know, my bat file works for me. Okay, well, that's just this. That's over with, and I hope this is, I mean, this is a really nothing tutorial. It's really just talking about my bat files and how I build my project. I hope it was interesting to some people, and I will see you guys next time.